Hey, this is Pete from 21st Century Prepper. Today's podcast is about canning. And joining me today is Skip.
Good evening, everybody.
Richard.
Hey.
And Lisa.
Hello, all.
Okay, it's that time of year. Well, technically it's that time of year all the time in some parts of the country, because people in the South are pretty much done with their gardens already. So, and Skip, you can in the middle of winter when you make chili and stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
year round.
And I plan on doing that this year because I just bought a pressure canner. So, how did everybody get started? Did your parents can, or?
My parents were well, my dad was a farmer. He had always had a huge section of tomato plants. Even though we were suburban kids, there was always a huge, at least a dozen plants, and he would get them going really well. So we always had 50, 60 quart jars in our basement, and that would last throughout the whole winter. So I'd always watch him and Mom constantly doing peel the tomatoes, chop the tomatoes, can the tomatoes, and they were just a nonstop assembly line for, it seemed, weeks. Get enough. We're only going to do 6 quarts today, Mom. And so she would just get everything ready, pull it all out, run it through the dishwasher, sanitize it, and they just had their assembly line. So I learned from my folks.
That's cool.
I learned on my own because my first couple years gardening, I was like, my God, I'm throwing away tons of food. And so I bought the Big Ball Canning book just to see what it was about. And one thing led to another, and kind of started going from there. And really kind of took it to another level, too, because I make pre-made meals for my kids and sloppy Joe mix and all kind of stuff. All they got to do is pop open a can and heat it up, and they're ready to go.
Nice.
Yeah, I would like to get into that. You get that big bulk purchase of
Absolutely
ground beef or something, and just go to town on it for a day and make a big vat of Hungarian goulash or something chili.
Well,
I made a brisket a couple weeks ago, and I froze a bunch of it, cubed it up, and I'm gonna make some chilies this winter. So
nice.
Well, one thing I found out is, like, you go to Walmart and you find 4 packs of 5 pounds of ground beef on clearance because it's expiring the next day. I mean, you come home, fry it up, throw in some sloppy Joe mix or whatever, however you make it. I make sloppy Joes, and I make sloppy Joes with onion soup mix also. My kids like that. And just start in a pressure canner, walk away, and, you got pre-made meals.
Yep. How about you, Richard? How'd you?
Yeah. My grandmother and grandfather had a garden. I spent summers and weekends out there with them, and they had a big enough garden that they sold to the markets in town back before it became illegal to do that. So they canned their excess, whatever didn't sell as fresh produce, and whatever we didn't consume on the table, we canned for use during the winter. And we've kind of followed that. I own a farm now. It's much smaller than what they do, but everything ripens all at once, but you want to use it throughout the year, and canning is a way to do that.
Yeah. I started, the first time I canned anything was about 8 years ago. And I was going to have help with an experienced person, and they didn't make it, so I just went for it myself and followed the directions, and came out pretty well. So
yeah, nobody died, so you're doing all right.
Yeah, no one. So, how would you suggest someone getting into? I've seen a lot of it. I'm on a couple of pages lately where people have never canned before, and they're kind of freaked out about it. You mentioned the ball.
Yep, the Big Ball book. That's number one starting point.
Ball, yeah.
Yep, that's the start. That is the Bible right there.
Yep. I've got my copy somewhere around here. I'm not sure. Well, I've combined 2 rooms into my office, so
the first thing I canned
with stuff right now. So the
first thing I ever canned was strawberries, and I made strawberry jam because I looked at all the recipes and how you got to prepare everything, and so on and so forth. And it is absolutely simple. I mean, you're talking sugar and strawberries. I mean, you can go to your grocery store and pick up a couple quarts of strawberries, wash them good, and make strawberry jam in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to prepare the jars. You learn that things happen fast, so you have to have everything lined up and ready to go. And that's how I started. And I'd really recommend other people try something like that too, because you're out $8 at the most in strawberries and sugar, and you learn a lot.
Oh yeah.
It's a really good idea, a small batch, because
Yes.
we usually think of getting the big assembly line of, a dozen pint jars ready to go at the
Right,
helm, or, you get your quart size jars ready and you think you're going to do a big batch. But that's a really good idea on just simple fruit and sugar, because it is a lot of work. And if you do fail, yeah, you're right.
You're
It's
out
just
nothing.
a couple jars.
Yeah, and you're out a couple lids of bands and some strawberries.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We've made we'll call them mistakes.
Oh,
Sometimes our mistakes become things that we put over ice cream because they don't.
yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's really hard to goof up something canning with sugar. It really is. Worst case, you wind up putting it in your refrigerator and using it.
Yeah.
My grandparents used, if you remember back, they used paraffin.
Yeah, a lot of people still. It's still in a ton of recipes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. As opposed, I mean, there's several different types of canning. There's pickling, which is canning, but that's a little different. And then there's jellies and jams, which is again a little different. And then there's canning things in water bath.
Right.
And then there's pressure canning.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of reading to do to see what you want to do, but I would agree that jams and jellies are probably the simplest thing to
Absolutely.
start with. And just go from there.
Just learn how to
Practice.
jelly flakes, whatever you call it, and
Yeah. Yeah, you don't really run into any problems until you start canning meat, and you need
Right.
to do that. You need to have a little bit of experience and do that well, because if you don't do that well, it could cause some challenges later.
I'd say that's true, absolutely, with meat, but I'll throw the warning out here. Please, for the love of God, if a recipe calls for pressure can it. I don't care if Grandma used to do it in a water bath and nobody died. There was just a huge outbreak of botulism, and like one person died from it because they had potato salad that was improperly canned, and they got botulism from it.
Well, that's why people quit canning in the home when cans like canned tuna and stuff like that started coming out of the manufacturer, because it literally was a little safer. But you can go to Ball or any of the sites, and they'll give you all the information you need to do it well and to do it safely.
Yeah.
So you just got to do a little bit of reading.
Yeah, just follow the USDA guidelines, please. I mean, I know I've seen a ton of stuff with some questionable advice. I'm just going to say, especially when it comes to bacon. And
butter.
And butter. Pete, you took the words out of my mouth.
Oh, bacon dipped in butter.
And then in syrup.
Oh,
I mean, this stuff can kill you. That's the
And
big
if
thing.
anybody,
That's for the young guys. Us older guys don't do that.
if anybody does want to start or get your feet wet, don't pressure can.
Right.
no.
Do that one after you're completely comfortable with doing at least maybe 4, 5, 6 different batches of all sorts of different kinds of fruits
Right.
and vegetables. Even after a couple of years, because the first time I bought my pressure canner, I had probably done a dozen or so batches of whatever it was. I sat and read, actually my box sat on the floor in my basement for probably 6 months, and I was dead scared of it. And then I'd watch a YouTube tutorial about this fat farm woman, and you know something's good going to come from her kitchen. So I sat and watched her video, and I watched her video, and I'm not kidding. She says, if you're scared of doing this, which was me, get out your book and just read the pamphlet or the manual, and then read it again, and then figure out what you want to make, and then do all this. And that's totally what I did. So I watched her do chicken. She did raw chicken.
Yes.
And there's no way I was going to do raw chicken because that just seemed wrong. So I just got out the manual and I read it over and over, and my confidence started growing a little bit, just enough to think, well, maybe I can do this if that woman can, because I cook a lot. And that's how I started, was raw chicken. and that was my very first batch, and I followed exactly. So you get information. You go to the cookbook or the manual that comes with your pressure cooker. You'll watch videos. You'll go to that ball or whoever does pressure. I think Presto is the one I bought.
Yep, that's exactly.
And you just keep getting information, and pretty soon ideas will form on how it's done, or what, like the details and maybe the scientific formula to why you have to hold it at that pressure for so long, and like it all starts making sense, and then you just go for it, and it works, and it's so cool. It tastes a lot like the chicken that you get from a can. It's not glorious, but it's really good when you can add it to a soup and you don't have to cook or go buy some soup. So
Or
I
make
love having
chicken
instant
salad
meat
or-
ready
yeah.
anytime.
It's great for
It's
chicken
one
salad.
afternoon of work.
Yeah, it's great for chicken salad. and
What
stuff.
did you mention to me the other day, Lisa, about
Oh
pressure
God,
canning?
it's the first time I did it, I was so scared. I chased my kids out of the house and said, "Everybody's out of the kitchen for 2 hours. I don't even want you in the house. Find your buddies. I don't even care. I'll buy you a box." Like I'm throwing Skittles in the yard. I'm like, "Just go." I sat on the other side of the island after I got it to the right temperature and everything's I'm doing exactly what it says. I was just short of putting on a catcher's mask and the vest. I was so scared. And I sat on the other side of the island, and I would just occasionally peek over to make sure it's at 11 pounds of pressure. And then I'd sit back down, and I'd look at my book again, even though I couldn't even read because I was so scared. But it totally worked, and I was fine, and the kids were fine after they finished the Skittle hunt. And I'm not kidding. I grabbed a handful of Skittles and just cranked it and made sure they saw me. And then they were outside playing, and they were fine. And that was my first attempt.
See, and on these other pages where we talk about stuff like this, and people are, I'm freaked out by it a little bit. I mean,
It is because
if you've seen my post, I just got an All-American 25 quart, right?
Yeah.
This thing, my first post when I got it, I was like, what came first, Captain America's shield
Yeah.
or the lid to this thing? Because this thing, it could stop. You'd think it could stop a 45 round easy. might be able to stop a rifle round. I don't know, because this thing it's huge.
Yep.
And
It is
weighs a
scary.
ton, and it's like half an inch thick. It's like,
Yep.
wow. And imagine that thing blowing. It freaks me out a little bit.
You'll get there. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I just
Right.
gotta, like you
Yeah.
said, I just gotta start reading and watching any videos and asking questions. I'm not afraid to ask questions.
Before you
The
start,
thing-
Pete. Oh, sorry, Richard. Go ahead.
Okay, the thing that helped us most is we have we sell food at the farmers market because I do bees and lots of other stuff, but we run into a lot of people, and what really has helped is the first time you try something, if you've got a buddy that either will try it with you the first time or will that's got some experience, go over to their place and take your stuff with you and can with them and make a social event out of it. And it really helps your confidence level.
Yep.
Good idea.
Yeah, it really does work pretty well.
I know what I can do. I could run out and hang out with the Amish.
Oh, you would learn. They would love
I know
to
I'd
have you,
learn.
Pete. Oh my God, are you kidding?
But it's the
Good.
big,
You just
everybody goes to the Amish in the prepper world.
You just can't use buttons or zippers, so you're fine.
Oh no, we have
Pete, they
we don't
burn
have
sage.
we don't
after you
have
left.
those Amish around here. We have normal, regular Amish that drive cars and drink Mountain Dew. So,
Oh, liberals.
oh yeah, big time. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So,
Whew.
start out with jams and jellies. It's an
Yeah,
easy
pickles.
thing. We just had 78-cent strawberries here a couple
Oh.
weeks, like 2 weeks ago. My wife bakes cakes and puts strawberry filling in, So
Nice.
I think I bought 16 of them just because
Oh.
she cooks some down, reduces it for the filling, and then I just froze the rest of them so she can make it as she needs to.
Nice.
But yeah,
You know what's
I mean-
really good? I made strawberry lime jam, and it's the best ever. I just juiced and thinly sliced the rind, like as thin as possible. Even on a mandolin, you could do it. But it is the best recipe I've ever made. A little
Oh.
bit of lime juice, a little bit of rind, and a bunch of strawberry. Anyways, moving on.
We started with making spaghetti sauce because we had a lot of tomatoes. I ate tomatoes until I thought I was going to turn into a tomato. And like was said before, after you start throwing away a lot of stuff, you start going, God, there's got to be a better way to do this. So we got a recipe for spaghetti sauce, and it had a lot of sugar in it. We cut the sugar a little bit, made it a little healthier, and we do cases of spaghetti sauce every year out of our own garden.
Nice.
I'm not very good at pickling, but we also do a lot of salsa because tomatoes, right? So we can salsa in a water bath, no pressure, and it you sit in the other room and wait for things to go ping, ping, ping as the lid goes ping, and the ones that don't go ping, you stick them in the refrigerator, and that's what you eat over the next couple of days. It's a lot of fun waiting for the ping.
Mm-hmm. Does everybody yell?
Yeah, there was just a woman on a page today posted, I just had my first ping.
I saw that. Yeah,
and everybody's like,
that.
Congratulations.
Well, you talked about pickles, Richard. Going back to the Big Ball book, there's some relatively easy pickling recipes for bread and butter pickles. I mean, of course, when you get into the kosher styles and spears and stuff like that, it's a little more difficult. But, I mean, again, you don't necessarily have to have a garden. You can go right to the store, buy, 8 cucumbers, try it out.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
sure.
And
there's an old book. It's an old school book called The Joys of Pickling that I got from my father-in-law, and it truly is an old book. This is like a 3-generation book. It's been passed down, and you would be amazed. You can pickle anything.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a vegetable. You can pickle anything.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And eggs and everything else too.
Our local grocery store brings in a pallet of peaches.
Yes.
They've got a pallet of peaches right now. I mean, peaches do grow around here, but it's few and far between. But yeah, they bring in a pallet of peaches every year, and
peach apricot jelly.
And also, not just grocery stores. Look for, if you have a produce distributor near you, contact them. Sometimes they sell directly from their whatever, and you can go in there and buy a whole case.
Well, same with the farmers markets. Like, farmers markets. There's a produce auction here, twice a week, and it's fresh off the farm produce. These little produce stands that you see on the side of the road.
That really is a good place to grow because we go there to sell stuff, but there are produce vendors there that they have 2 different kinds of produce. They have produce that they sell that's pretty in the basket. And they also have produce for canning, which doesn't quite make the basket level, but it's fine for canning. So it's not the really pretty blemish-free fruit, but with a little bit of work, you can pay half as much for canning tomatoes or canning pickles and canning vegetables. When we buy multiple cases of that for $10 or $12 a case, where if you bought the cosmetically pretty ones, it might cost you twice as much. So really works out well for us if we're doing something that we're not growing.
Well, I mean, I've heard it firsthand where somebody has walked up to somebody at the farmer's market who's got, like, I'm going to say a whole table full of tomatoes and said, can you give me a deal on 40 pounds of tomatoes? And that's a good starting point for canning tomato sauce. You guys know that. And
nice. Our farmer's market closes at 2 on Saturday. So you come up there with a handful of cash on
right.
155, yeah.
And you're good to go, man. You can get because they'd rather sell it than load it back in the truck.
Sure, have it spoil or something else. You know what I mean?
Kind of like going to a gun show on Sunday. Same deal.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Just like up here, Pete. We're northern people, and I know end of August it's going to be heading to the pig farm if people don't buy it or something. And so I used to get the tomatoes that were looking kind of borderline to pretty tired looking, and they would just unload a couple baskets. I don't know if they're properly called bushels, but a couple of them for $20. And oh man, one summer I did 66 pints of salsa, and I was just fed up with salsa, but it was so good. It lasted 2 years.
You just have to be ready to do it right then, because when that stuff's on the edge and they're selling it for cheap, you gotta be ready to do it.
Yeah, you gotta make. Okay.
$3 or $4.
I was in the grocery business for 15 years, and I've said this before. Probably, maybe not like a Walmart or something like that, or a but go in and make friends with your grocery people. I don't care if it's with Safeway or Piggly Wiggly or, I mean, possibly not the one you can ask at Walmart, but go in and make friends with these people. Chat them up, and whatever, and then just not the first time, maybe not the second time, maybe the third time, drop a hint that you would buy if they have something extra and they have a lot of it. Just drop a hint that you might be interested in a case of whatever, because they have run an ad on whatever tomatoes. Well, then the store across town has them for 50 cents cheaper. So then, theoretically, everybody's buying the tomatoes over there, and these guys are stuck with their tomatoes or whatever. Whatever they got, apples or whatever. Hit those people up. Same thing with the guy in the butcher shop, in the meat department. Let them know. If they get our butcher shop, our meat department got a case. Was it a case? No, it was 2 cases of the wrong pork. He ordered something, they got in something else. I think it was whole pork butts, and they didn't sell them. They couldn't sell them, and they couldn't return them. So my meat department manager comes up to me and says, "Hey, I got these pork butts, blah 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 blah. You want them? This is how much." And I'm like, and it was like $1.10 a pound or something like that. And I'm like, okay, because
Right.
guess what time of year it was? It was about
Easter?
a month before. No, it was a month before deer hunting.
Oh.
And what do you mix in with your venison to make sausage?
Yeah.
Yep.
Pork fat.
Pork.
Pork. Yeah.
So we got that. We chucked it into the freezer. Took it out to the significant others at the time, parents' house, and they had like 4 chest freezers. We spread it all through the chest freezers and sat on it until the deer started rolling in, and then they made their own sausage and stuff. They processed their own deer, so there we had pork to go with it. So they didn't have to go
Cool.
butcher a pig or buy half a pig or something. So get to know your people at your grocery stores. Not little Bobby who cleans at night. I'm talking like the department manager dude that works in produce or meat department, or just chat with them, become friends and buddies with them, and then same thing with like the store management. Chat them up,
Mm-hmm.
and they get to know you. That way, they got whatever, a couple of pallets sitting out back. You're like, hey, can I grab a couple of those pallets? And they're like, sure, go ahead. That crap, or remodels. Guess what I got?
Yeah.
Granted, I worked there. I got stainless steel tables. Now we're getting off
Wow.
canning here, but yeah, we did a remodel in the deli area, and they removed the stainless steel table that had the pop machines on it, and it had a cut hole in it for trash on it. They're like, we're not going to use this. Do you want it? And I'm like, sure thing. Boom, took it. Now it's in that other person's area where they butch their stuff. So I left it with them. I didn't take it with me. I lost
I
it.
just want this table.
But it was I don't know how $500 stainless steel table probably. So
Cool.
get to know the people that work at your grocery stores. Get to know them. So, okay. What are some of the oddest things you've canned? Or ever heard of anybody canning?
I made oh hell, what is it? Apple syrup for like pancakes.
Mm-hmm.
I made that last year, and that is really good.
Apple syrup.
Yeah,
Is it like
apple
really
syrup.
liquidy?
Yes.
Like syrup? Or
Yeah,
is it
no, it's really liquidy. When you get it out, you gotta heat it back up and put cornstarch in it, thicken it up, and that's in the recipe. That's in the big ball book. I made it out of the ball book.
Okay.
That stuff is
Cool.
delicious.
Well, my trees aren't quite there, but
It
maybe
is
someday.
delicious.
So we have a guy that grows sorghum locally, and he presses the cane and then boils it and makes cane syrup out of it, and then boils it a second time and makes sorghum out of it. And while he's doing that, this stuff comes out super hot, you can put it directly into sterilized jars, put the lid on it, and it's like a water bath. It'll pop a seal on it, and you have really, really nice sorghum. If you like sorghum, and we use that at Christmas time to make gingerbread men.
Gotcha.
Okay. So like a molasses.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Sorghum molasses.
Oh, you
The
asked.
oddest one,
Yeah.
to me, is canning water.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I understand it,
It's too much
but it's
space.
still kind of odd.
That would just take up too much space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I mean,
You
It's
and I,
a
Lisa,
jar.
we're surrounded by water, so I understand it if you live in Phoenix. But
Yeah. I like my 55-gallon water drums.
yeah, me and my Berkey and my
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna do it that way. I get it, especially if water is a sparse commodity where you're at. But there's water all over the place in the southeast, so I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the weirdest thing
make-
I ever did recipe-wise was orange marmalade, because that was an absolute pain in the ass.
A what?
Orange marmalade?
marmalade.
Yeah, that was a pain in the ass.
Mm.
That was one of the most difficult things I've ever canned, and I won't do it again.
Sounds like fun.
It was so much cutting and slicing and peeling and layering, and you got to add this, and then you got to add this 10 minutes later, and it's like, oh my god.
It
yeah,
does sound like a lot of
good
work.
thing
Yeah,
I don't like it. So
It
Well, I
was
guess we
good.
won't send you any then after we do it.
Well, I made last year. I made all my family a basket of different things that I had canned, and I was trying. Orange marmalade's kind of a Christmas thing, and that was the Christmas present. As I gave them a basket with spaghetti sauce and salsa and orange marmalade and apple butter. And I was trying to find
Nice.
something to tie it into Christmas, and that's why I said, okay, well, I'll make orange marmalade. This doesn't sound hard. Yeah, no,
Sounds like it would be a lot of work.
yeah, it is.
2 years ago,
There aren't any oranges in Tennessee, so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, you're close to Florida. You're in good shape.
Yeah.
and the grocery store has them. Hopefully, 2 years ago I had 4 cucumber plants, and I did pickles, and we still have them because about the only one in the family that eats them is my wife. So last year we had 2 plants, and this year we have 1 because I didn't want to have to deal with doing so many pickles. And
So you don't eat cucumbers on Pete?
no, I don't eat vegetables
Well, I tell you, if anybody
Oh my
wants it,
God! And she's still
unless
married
it's
you.
like, I know, unless mashing it up, smush it, make it into a pizza sauce, it's mine, or a spaghetti sauce, yeah. But I'm not a. If it didn't have hooves, feathers, and die a horrible death, and is not a tuber, I'm not going to eat it. Pretty
Wow.
much. So
well, I tell you what I
I know.
have is my
I will,
grand.
I will say one of the things that I have wanted to do that I have not tried yet is making chicken stock or beef stock.
Now, see, my buddy does that constantly. They make tons of stock.
See,
Tons.
I understand it, but I don't know how to do it, and that's one of the things I want to try because that's really beneficial. If you do a pot of rice, a pot of beans, or whatever, and put some stock in it, and it just changes it from blah to something that's really nice to eat.
The day after Thanksgiving, I was talking to him, and he was boiling down 2 turkey carcasses for stock. They make tons of it. It's in the big ball book. The recipes are in there.
I'm thinking I need to find somebody that knows how to do that and go donate my time and energy to learn how.
Well, he can't help you because he's up here, but after we get off the podcast, it's one of our group members. I'm sure he can give you some pointers on it.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite post-Thanksgiving is take that the turkey, and then I do have a rice cooker, but you don't have to do that. And I make a pot of wild rice, and then I boil my turkey bones, throw in carrots, and I make a broth-based turkey wild rice soup instead of chicken, but I do chicken wild rice with cream and make it that way. But the turkey wild rice with all the extra veggies is really good. But that is the pressure canner because it's
Yes,
meat.
absolutely.
Yep.
So, but it's a really great recipe.
So now I'm hungry. Thanks.
I love chicken rice.
Oh my god.
Uh, Okay. What else should we cover on this subject? I mean,
I just mentioned
get out there and read.
Write your dates on the top.
Yes.
The month and year that you do it. So
Well, I
you
write
know
mine on my label because I got tired of messing.
when you did it.
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
I buy. I'm the guy that buys the dissolvable labels because I like them, and I write them on my labels.
Dissolvable labels.
Yeah.
Rotate.
First in, first out, baby.
Yep.
Canning is a lot of fun, and one of the things that if you're in the preparedness community outside of canning is wait till the end of the canning season and go catch your sales and stack up extra jars, stack up lids, stack up the rings.
Mm-hmm.
Find the stuff on sale and buy the inexpensive stuff because glass and rings and seals don't go bad.
That's right.
Yeah. Keep the seal, the lids, because you can if you have a vacuum sealer, you can use. Now I've reused lids in the water bath and it's worked. I haven't lost one yet. People frown on it, obviously.
Well,
Okay.
I will say this, that we use some of what we can is we use Tattler lids, Tattler, and they have a nylon lid with a rubber seal that can be reused multiple times. That's what it's designed to do.
Okay.
And if they came out in 1976, 77, and I didn't know anything about them until just recently. I will say this. Their advice of learn how to can water, because a seal is a little different than a ball lid. Can water first, and if you can get a seal with canning water, then you're good to can everything else. Really is useful, and you can reuse them. So you get in a position where you can't get more lids, very useful.
Well, one thing I've done with reusing lids, and I've probably given bad advice here that I shouldn't, but anything that I water bath can, I will use the lid again once with the pressure canner. But once it's in the pressure canner, you guys know what that does to a lid seal, so they go in the trash after that.
Mm-hmm.
But a water bath, I mean, you've seen them; they come off brand new. As long as you don't nick it up when you're trying to bust a seal on it.
Well, has anybody done oven canning?
I do. Yeah, I
No.
do it with flour, and I did a bunch of cornbread mix and pre-made muffin mixes and stuff like that.
That's worth looking into too. And those old lids are still good for other things besides canning. If you want to keep moisture out of it, but you're not worried about maintaining a seal.
Yeah.
One more thing, Pete, before we sign off. It took me, it took me several batches, but I didn't know they had a divider when you do the pressure canning.
Yes.
It's a stainless disc that you can put in between layers, so you can do double amount.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a few batches before I did it. So I would sit and do, two, and it takes like an hour to process, and then I would let it cool, and I would do another batch. And I didn't know they made this disc that you can put in between the layers and get double amount in the same amount of time. So if anybody out there is thinking about pressure canning, buy that extra divider and save some time.
Yeah, and I'm one for gadgets, obviously. So just get all the gadgets. The little lid thing, with the magnet stick.
I love that.
It's so easy,
I used to do the tongs, but then they would always stick together.
Make sure you get the little jar tongies and the
baskets.
basket to lift. Yeah, it's just get that stuff.
The funnel.
Those kits are what, $10 or
Make
something
sure
like
you
that.
get the funnel. Yes, make
Buy
sure you
2
get
or
the
3 of
funnel.
them.
The funnel
Yeah.
is absolutely imperative. I mean, them wide mouth funnels are so handy for canning.
Yeah.
It's just don't even try it without it.
And get
Right.
get a good one of those.
Yes.
Get a good one. Get like a heavy duty. Don't go cheap on those. So, anything else?
No,
Stay organized before you even start a
Yes.
project. Wash
Yeah.
everything
Twice.
first. Don't
Yeah.
yes, don't start doing stuff and then realize you have a sink full of dishes and your
Sterilize,
counters
right.
are all mangy. Clean first and then start prepping.
Yeah, and process your jars properly prior to canning so you can, kill the bacteria. Follow USDA guidelines. I'm telling you, that's scary. I mean, people die
Yeah.
on this stuff. This is,
Nothing's
Yeah.
worth getting sick over.
yeah.
Over a couple dollars.
Yeah.
It's crazy what people will try to do just to be cheap. When in doubt, throw it out.
Yeah, and I've heard the expression, well, my grandmother used to can pickles and she just let them, pour hot water in them and the lids would seal. Well, that's great. Well, there's a reason why they stopped canning and started
Right.
buying them in the grocery store,
That's right.
And there's a reason why the life expectancy in 1920 was 52 also.
Exactly.
No. He had a heart attack. No, it was bad pickles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, she made these pickled eggs one time, and they were really good. I don't care. I've heard that stuff
Yeah.
so much.
Yep. Okay. Just have fun. Try it. Experiment. Start slow. Then go big. Don't go big first, like we said before. And hopefully everybody enjoys it. I enjoy it. You hear that first pop, and it's like, cool.
Yep. And one other
Everybody
thing I'll say
cheers
is
from around the house. Yay!
I've talked about the Big Ball book, but there's a couple of other really good books. Better Homes and
Oh, yeah.
Gardens has a book that I got, and there's another one. I think it's Southern Living. Made nice binder book of canning recipes, and there's some good stuff in there. There's some stuff in there I'd personally never eat, but there's some good recipes in there, and you can always put a variation on it too. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
don't be afraid to play around with it.
Yep. So, okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap her up. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you check us out on the Facebook page, 21st Century Prepper, MeWe, Instagram, Pinterest page.
Twitter.
We had the discussion today. Get on Pinterest. Guys, you can do it. Trust me. If you don't, get on Pinterest. Go on your wife's Pinterest because you know she's got it, and type in man cave, and you'll miss work tomorrow because you'll be like, stuff is cool.
I
So,
need to do that.
you on Pinterest, Lisa?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
can crochet a holster for your 1911. It's fabulous. I'm just kidding.
We just lost them right
Yeah,
there.
it's
And
gone.
barbecue. Type in go to Pinterest and type in barbecue, and you're gonna see stuff like, and you'll be gone. Your wife will be like, "Were you still on there?" And all the other places that we're at. I can't even remember all of them that we're at anymore. So also the website, 21stcenturyprepper.net. So thank you.
Have a good night.